Hi, welcome back. I wanted to show you what is in my pencil roll, although I have way more than pencils in here. Basically, I've been kind of working through several different ways of like transporting or holding all of my art supplies over the past several months. And I used to have like a different setup, and I had several individual setups for various scenarios, and then kind of more recently I decided I didn't like all of that. I didn't like having all the multiple kinds of scenario setups, so I decided that I would just make this pencil roll and kind of design it to be exactly what I needed, and it would function as my all-encompassing art carrier that I can kind of take with me and add what else I need alongside it. So you might be thinking, well, that looks just like the Peganol large pencil roll, whatever they call theirs. And you would be correct, because I made this myself and I based it entirely off of theirs using the measurements that they provide and my own guesswork. I didn't buy a pattern or anything. I just guesstimated, and then I made some adjustments here and there for mine. The only reason I did it that way is because I can, because I am a sewist also. And when I see things that I'm like, I could make that, then I make it. There's like, there's no reason to not get theirs. I mean, it is a bit pricey, so if you feel like you could also make your own, by all means go for it. I'm not gonna show how I made mine because I did pretty much directly copy theirs, but I would say the most comparable thing to what I have here is that Peganol large pencil roll. And then I'll walk you through some of the changes that I made. So this was my first attempt, and I sort of knew at the time that it was going to be like a mock-up, really, not my final. I did make this out of like a heavyweight cotton twill that I then waxed, and I don't recommend that. It was so messy and didn't provide the structure that pre-waxed cotton provides anyway. So when I was ready to make the second version, I knew I was just gonna order a yard of pre-waxed cotton canvas, and that was absolutely the right way to go. Just order it. It will save you a lot of hassle. I didn't even use I didn't use half a yard. I think I used less than half a yard to make this. So I still have another half that I can turn into something else. But there were a few things that I realized while I was kind of working with the prototype. I mean, I say prototype loosely because it's already made after somebody else's design. But I realized that because the Peganol one has these open pockets in the back, I realized I really wanted mine to be able to close and like hold little items in here. So kind of after the fact, I hand sewed in some Velcro strips here. So I knew when it was time to make the next version that I was going to just include that from the start, because it was a little bit fiddly to do it after it was already made. Some other things that I adjusted, well, I'll just show you on the real one. So here it is, and I still may consider this another working prototype or mock-up, but for now I really like it, and it's going to serve me for a while before I ever make anything else like it. So basically, between the first mock-up and the second version, I upgraded the fabric. I included the Velcro in these back panels from the start, so I was able to sew them with my machine. Other than that, it's like more or less the same. I did sew all these individual sections here where the pencils are, and then kind of later decided to cut down the threads that were here because I wanted some of these to be a bit wider so I could fit more pencils in, you know, because like for every time there's a stitch down, that could be a pencil if you got rid of it. So there are a few that like have, you can see where I did stitch it and then I took it out. Other than that, I have kind of the same structure of these inner pockets back here that I'll talk about more, and then a closure. My closure, I knew in the first one that this was just a mock-up, so I didn't bother with any leather closures. I just did this cotton twill tape, and I just sewed it down really well, and this worked actually pretty nicely. So if you do make yours and you don't want to use leather or whatever, don't have the tools to do that, I just did it like this, where I sewed it down, and then you can, if you have it go in both directions, then it comes around on the other side and it ties. So that was fine. I knew I wanted to like use this leather strap that I've just had around and used for various other things in the past. So I took it off of that previous project. I do leather work sometimes, so you can also see that on the other channel, but I don't have the tools I need here to do a buckle closure. I've done one in the past, but a buckle closure needs some specific tools and I don't have them. So I did have what I needed to do, snaps and rivets. So I just decided that I would have it be a snap closure, and actually it works great, and I don't mind that it's not a buckle. So it just kind of wraps around, and then I filled it up and marked the middle too, and that was like the kind of standard placement, and then I just gave myself one on each end just for, you know, some movement fluctuation that may occur. And that works really well too. So what do I have in here? Well, you can see that I have a lot of colored pencils. I think if I were to make this again in the future, I would make it so that this front piece were all this short end size. So it would just go down to the 3-inch mark all the way across. That is because I think they do it this way because maybe you put things in here that are not necessarily colored pencils, and things that don't like shorten in length. But for me, I've realized that like I just want colored pencils in here, and so they get quite short, obviously. So I'm running into a problem where, because I have this like color coordinated, I have things at all ends and at the large end that are getting quite short, and I'm a little bit worried that I'm gonna lose them down in here. I mean, I have done that once or twice already, so I don't really want to take all the really short ones and move them over here, because then they're out of the order that I want them to be in. So that would be my only note for the next time. I unfortunately cannot replace this now, because like some projects, you know, I could just unpick some seams, go in and like update this panel or whatever, but in my order of operations in making this piece is the very first thing that gets made, and so it would require basically disassembling the entire piece just to update that. So I might as well, like, I would just be starting over anyway. So yeah, for now this is fine, and I'm making it work, and it'll be fine. And if I ever make it again in the future, and I mean this would be way in the future, because actually this works really well for me, I'll just have to keep that in mind. But yes, I have a variety of colored pencils in this first area. I'm constantly changing out what's in here, kind of readjusting. I imagine I'll always do that because, you know, as seasons change, I'll update it. Right now it's very summery, lots and lots of greens, and then we kind of work into some other colors, and maybe, you know, the next most color is blue. when it gets into fall, I'm gonna update it with more reds, more yellows, more oranges, fewer greens probably. So I'm sure this will be an ever fluctuating area. And then in the zipper pocket, I was keeping other stuff in here, but I recently decided to move these from a different area that they were in, my Neo Colors and my Neo Arts. Just a handful of some that I find really useful. Like the colored pencils, this kind of gets shuffled and readjusted depending on what I think I'm drawing in the moment. So yeah, they fit pretty nicely in here. Then there are these inner pockets. So the way it works in the Peg and All is that you have two small pockets on the outer edge and then two like larger pockets on the inner part here. And then there's a stitch in down the very center so that they're separated from each other. I adjusted mine here. I have my small pocket, my medium pocket here, and then I opened this one to be one large pocket. So it goes all the way from here to here. That is because of what I keep in that large pocket. So I'll start on this smaller pocket here. I keep a few more pencils here. Basically, these are sort of like, I consider this my like, real sketchy little group of pencils that don't really change much. So I just have the white and the black pencil that I'm using in the moment. And I kind of like, I don't like to use up space for white or black in here because it's just like, I actually don't reach for either white or black that often, but I want to have them for when I need them. So they're kind of like in this other section, and the colored pencils that I use a lot are left over here. I have a sepia colored pencil here, and then I have this clutch, which is filled with sanguine lead. So it's by Cretacolor, and I bought a pack of 6 of them, and I really love it. And I love to sketch in a sanguine pencil and then like a sepia. These are kind of like my Renaissance pencil, my little Renaissance pencil area. So it's kind of a separate, I use them sort of separately from how I would use like the rest of the colored pencils. And then I also have this bright red Blackwing pencil. This one is a somewhat recent addition, so we'll see if it remains in there, but it's kind of nice to have just like this bright random color. And then lastly, I keep an actual graphite pencil. This is the Pitt Graphite Matte. This one's in 8B, but I just have the tin of all the sizes, not the big one, but the smaller tin. And it's nice. It's a matte black pencil, but it's graphite. So that's the littler section. In the medium section, I have, this is something I'm calling like my inky section. So in here I keep a variety of things. I have 3 Inktense pencils. I tend not to color with these dry. I pretty much use them as a water soluble material. I use them, I get them down, and then I use this water brush that is filled with just water and work with them that way. I sometimes use a little bit of them, use them a little bit dry, but for the most part I tend to think of them as a wet material. So that's why I've kept them in this area. But they're kind of handy to have, and they don't take up a ton of space, even though I maybe don't use them as often as I should. This is my Pilot Parallel pen, and I absolutely love it. I use it all the time to do sketches with. It does go through ink pretty quickly, so later you'll see that I have a cartridge for it in one of the other sections. Sometimes I keep that in here. But I love to do my sketches with it. It has a flat side, and then you can turn it to get a really skinny mark. So that kind of looks like this. I love I love to sketch with it, and it's really for calligraphy, but I don't use it that way. I use it for sketching. Another thing that I have in there, so I have these 4 water brushes. So the regular water brushes for the Inktense pencils, the Neocolors, those are all water soluble materials, and then some other things that I keep in some other pockets that I'll show you. And then I have these 3 water brushes that are ink that I have filled myself. So this very first one is one of my favorites. It is this dark green ink that I absolutely love, and it is so beautiful, and I'll show you what it is. It is the Tom Studio fountain pen ink in the shade Mallard, and it's this beautiful like bluey green ink color, and I absolutely love it. I don't tend to put it in a fountain pen. I really like to just draw and paint with it, but it is not waterproof, which is fine. I don't need it to be waterproof. So you can see that even though it's dried, I can still move it around and lighten it and work with it even after it's dried. The next one is another fountain pen ink that I filled in here, and this one is a bright gold color, and I love even mixing the 2 of them. They make this kind of really nice yellow green color, but on its own it's just so lovely, and I will often prep under paintings with this or under my sketches if I'm feeling like doing that, because when it's thinned out especially, it's a really nice like color underneath a sketch. And that one is this fountain pen ink by, I can't really tell what that says, but it just says Forever Ink in Butterscotch, and that's the shade name, Butterscotch. It's really lovely. And then the last one is kind of like just something I mixed together because I just had a little bit of ink left in 3 different containers, and I just wanted to finish them up. So I don't know if I'll ever be able to replicate this again, which is a shame because I absolutely love what I've done in here, but it was like I filled this about halfway with some acrylic ink, and I did just a tiny drop of raw umber, a even more minuscule drop of blue, and then I did a few drops of like a pyrrole orange, like a bright orange, and I mixed those together about halfway, and then I filled the rest with water, and it makes a really beautiful shade. So kind of this like muted pinky earthy color, which actually looks a lot like Potter's Pink, which is probably why I love it, because I love the color Potter's Pink. But yeah, this is acrylic ink in here, so I had to dilute it for it to come through the nib well enough. You can put acrylic ink directly in like a marker brush pen, but in something like this water brush, you need a little more water in there. So those are my 3 inks, and you can see you can get quite a variety of colors and shades, but all of these are just so lovely to include alongside sketching and to go over top of. Okay, so then in this big inside pocket, which I made even bigger, I have all of the Faber-Castell markers that I've purchased, which I would love to talk about more in an upcoming video, but for now I'll just show you. So it's not all of the ones that they make, although it kind of may seem like it's all of the ones that they make, but just all the ones that I've bought. And you can see I fit quite a few of them in here. There's one just Tombow black brush marker that I just include in here. But yeah, I have quite a few of them, and I like these a lot, and I still really like my Tombows, and I use them all the time, and my Ecolines, love them, absolutely love them, but they're just not as portable. I mean, the Tombows, like, they just do not fit in here. And then the Eco lines would, but they're so big. So what I really love about these is how small they are. And then if I'm just chilling on the couch and like, you know, I have somewhere, I'm just doing my art around my own home, I'm happy to use the Tombows and the Eco lines. But when I'm going out and I want to take markers, I am glad that I have these Faber-Castell ones. These are the Pitt Artist pen brushes, brush markers, I guess. So these are not watercolor, these are inks that are light fast, and they once dry, they don't move, or well, they're not supposed to move, at least. So they're a little bit different, but I really like them. In a different video, I'd be happy to go through like what colors I have and how I use them and stuff like that. So yeah, they just kind of all smush around in there. I don't really worry about keeping them in any kind of order. Okay, so that's it for the front, and then this gets folded over. And then I have these two back pockets that, again, I added my own Velcro to so that they could close and therefore hold more little loose items instead of like one big thing. On this side, we have some pencil related things. Sometimes I also keep one more thing in here, but I have I have 3 erasers. This one, which is the Art Eraser Dust Free. This is the Tombow Mono Eraser. It's like a sand eraser. It's kind of good for like, it has like a gritty texture to it, so it can kind of pick up like even something like a neo color. I won't say that it works extremely well, but it can work sort of well enough in some cases. But this one's fine. It's the Faber-Castell Art Eraser Dust Free. I don't know about dust free. There's definitely still little dusties, but maybe not as much as a regular eraser, and it works well. And then in here, this little tiny tin, I just keep a kneaded eraser so that it doesn't get all weird and gunky. And then this is an art graph tin, so it's a water-soluble graphite. Again, that water brush with just water comes in handy for this. And then a pencil sharpener. It has to be like a contained one that can hold some shavings, otherwise I would have to bring like another receptacle for the shavings. Sometimes I also keep I have a chunky water-soluble graphite pencil crayon thing. I sometimes also keep that in here. And then lastly, I have this side, and in here I have some watercolor things. So I have these tubes of watercolor, and I'm kind of bad at remembering that I have these, but my intention is like, again, with underpainting, I really love to have some color down and then work on top of it. So that's kind of my intention here. The buff titanium, I think, is more for like adding some, I don't know, some like texture back on top of some of my paintings. It's kind of hard to explain without showing, but basically I have my Potter's Pink. I have this bright orange that's just cadmium orange, and then I have this bright opera pink. Sometimes it's really fun to have like a super bright color underneath your paintings. And then I don't know that this is for an underpainting necessarily, but it's my Sodalite Genuine that I love and I use all the time, and I love like a dark inky kind of color. And then I have one more, but I don't keep it in here, of these Daniel Smith watercolor sticks. These two I've had for a while, plus a third one that I keep in a different section, but I don't know, I'm still kind of deciding how I like to use these. They're very good, and they work well if I just like wet them and kind of like go between my brush and these things, like touch the wet brush to this and then work with it on the page. If I get the tip of this wet, I can sort of draw with it, although I don't think it works super well for that purpose. but I wanted to experiment a little more with the white. All of these give like a kind of scratchy texture if you draw with them, so I thought that might actually be very interesting in some cases, especially with the white. And then lastly, I have one single Faber-Castell gelato in coconut. This is the only gelato that I own. You can buy them, some of the individual colors off of Blick. I just like this to kind of go over, push things back, kind of, you know, lighten things obviously. And it's just kind of like a good thing to have in here. So yeah, that's everything that's in my pencil roll. I used to have different pencil rolls for different scenarios. I think I mentioned that at the beginning. And then, I don't know, I felt like all my painting kits had to have like their own set of pencils, blah, blah, blah. So I'm really glad I made this because I basically just, if I'm going to go painting, I get my painting supplies together and then I put this in the bag and I know I've got everything. If I'm just hanging out on the couch, I have this next to me and I've got everything I need. If I just want to go sketching, I just take this. You know, it's great. It kind of freed me in my other kits because I could just have those be for those specific scenarios like painting or whatever. And I didn't have to worry about having like duplicate pencils in all of my kits or anything. So this has been a great addition. But yeah, basically it just, this folds down and then this comes in, and then mine has too much stuff to roll, but I like to do the folding method anyway. And then this comes around, and I think it's pretty full right now, so I may not be able to get it on the middle ones, but we'll see. Oh, I did. Snaps, and then it closes. I highly recommend, you know, either having a go at making one yourself, or, and it doesn't have to be based off of the Peg and Awl one, of course. You can design it however you want to design it, or give theirs a look. I can't speak to theirs because I don't have one, obviously, but I will say I've seen videos other people have loved having theirs, and I haven't seen anyone say they regret buying one or don't use it or whatever. So I do think that that is also a very good product. And that's all. Thanks for joining me. I love to do this kind of video in between like art, actual art videos. I love to talk about materials. I have other things I'd love to talk about. I bought some art books recently. If you want to see what those are, I'd be happy to show you. So if any of that sounds interesting, feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.